sometimes, Nate, people take a breathing class and they think this is the solution, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to reset the nervous system and I'm going to do this breathing. But it actually can be harmful if the brain doesn't have enough hydration and if the brain doesn't have enough glucose. So we need all three things in balance.
Welcome back to the Sobriety Diaries, friends. I'm your host, Nate Kelly, best-selling author and podcast producer, but most importantly, a recovering alcoholic 8 years from my last drink. I am so grateful to be bringing you these powerful stories of recovery told by you, those who live them. If you're joining us for the first time, check out more information at thesobrietydiaries.com and make sure to share the podcast with one person in your life who may need it today. You never know what they may need to hear. And with that, let's open the diary on episode 106. Welcome back to the Sobriety Diaries, friends. This is going to be a fun, energetic conversation. I can already tell. Please welcome Dave and Susan Kenney, founders of Emergo Academy and authors of Actualized Recovery. It's not about 12 steps. Recovery is a brain thing. So excited to welcome these two. Dave and Susan, welcome to the Sobriety Diaries. How are you today?
Thank you, Nate. Thanks for having us. We are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, so ready to rock and roll.
Amazing. I love when we can jump into things. Dave, why don't you sort of walk us through, and it's interesting with a couple because I like to start with your own personal journeys and how we have gotten to this place where we're able to help others and we're able to use our lived experience perhaps to guide others. So do we have separate recovery stories or did we embark on this journey together, Emergo, right? Why don't we start a bit with the personal journey that has gotten us to where we are today?
Sure, we definitely have different backgrounds and stories, and we came together about, well, I'm going to your testament here, Nate, about 15 years ago, 2008.
Oh, good.
All right, okay. So, and then the evolution of Emergo Academy came after that, but it was a result of our unique, different backgrounds. So certainly, I had a lot of struggles, especially as a young lad. I grew up in a wonderful family, and 3 boys, and my mom and dad. And my dad was an educator, so he valued education and stuff. But I was the one boy who struggled in school, and so they helped me by getting me into grade 4, a special school for grade 4, and I failed grade 4, failed miserably, or I failed like a champion. Either way you want to look at that. And I went back in again, and the second year my grades were the same or even worse. What we now know is my brain was processing things backwardsly, and it wasn't processing numbers and letters correctly. So effort wasn't the key, and wanting to do well wasn't the key. Although teachers back then thought I was lazy and unfocused and undisciplined, but the brain, the hard drive of the computer, Nate, wasn't working right. I'm going to fast forward a little bit into my early 20s. I discovered drugs and alcohol, and I got relief. And man, was I ever happy about life now. But again, through university, I struggled. So I was on the 13-year degree path. I finally graduated after 13 years, then got a master's, and I've done some PhD studies. Haven't completed that. But all of that goes to one thing, is my brain was struggling. And when we figured out and decided to live a brain healthy lifestyle, my world has changed. And I offer hope to people, whether that's sleep or substances or behavioral issues, anything. It's driven by the brain. And we're going to dive into that a little bit, how everybody can impact and change their outcome by living a brain healthy lifestyle.
I love that. So excited to dive into that. Now, Susan, what do you relate to in the sense that, there was maybe an underlying issue, or how do your stories kind of intertwine to when we meet up, 15 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I think Dave and I agree. We never would have dated in high school. Like there was a 0% chance. I was a rebel. I was punk. I was
Yes.
purple haired, whatever, right? Just the snarl, had the snarl down pat. And because of that rebellion, I think that's where I landed in the crowd that was experimenting with just about anything and everything. I was born in the 60s. So there wasn't the nurturing that there is now with children. So I think our generation was kind of left to, you guys figure it out. Just
Figure it
don't
out.
bother us.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, I was highly successful, highly intelligent, like Dave, not academically sound, but you could put me in a room and I could connect with anybody. So Dave and I shared that commonality. And I think it's one of the things that ended up drawing us together. It made it perfect for us to open a recovery program, a residential program, because we had the skill set. You could drop us literally anywhere in the world, Nate, and we would fit in. And I think that trait for both of us came because of the struggles that we had early on.
I love this tagline, and I saw it on your website, not willpower, brain power. And you kind of touched on that already, Dave.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting now that the kind of evolution of, well, medicine, of course, but this diagnosis of mental health or behavioral health challenges. Is that something that you kind of always have your thumb on, and looking at kind of the medicinal side of things to make sure you're kind of touching on that in your business as well?
Well, Nate, fundamentally, I don't believe, and Susan doesn't believe, and maybe this is our experience. Nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to fail. So we believe in greatness in people. Now we learn through life, trying and failing gets hard, but no one today is waking up looking forward to getting fired or failing an exam or failing your driver's test.
Disappointing
So
family.
nobody does that. So wait a minute, what else is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So this belief that they don't want it, I don't believe that. I believe in a human spirit, that there's a light in all of us. Now because of life, we learn to stop trying at certain times. So what else is going on? Well, what we've learned and what we've been able to study is brain drives behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And behavior, Nate, is your choices and my choices.
Brain function.
Brain function. So the hard drive of the computer, not the software. The software is the meditation and all of that. But if your computer gets a virus today, your software isn't going to work. So this is the hard drive of your computer. And it's not about willpower. Willpower does not overcome brain power. Brain power, meaning the hard drive, drives the show. And that's a addictions and substance abuse and gambling has actually been nicknamed the disease of neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
Think of that for a minute. We can get into what's that.
Neuroplasticity.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to be able to change. So it was actually discovered in the 60s, but not widely accepted until about 1999. And in 1999, what science shared is the confirmation that we have this thing called neuroplasticity, which means your brain, my brain, and all of your listeners' brains can rewire if we choose different behaviors. So you learn to ride a bike. It was a complex set of neural pathways. And then just one moment, those neural pathways connected through synapses and you were off, right? You didn't need the training wheels. You didn't need somebody holding the back. You were just gone. That's the moment when those neurons that fire together wire together. That became a synaptic cluster that your brain remembers, and then you ride the bike. So unlearning that is by choosing a different behavior. So you asked an interesting question, and I want to go back. There's a lot of pathology when it comes to mental health. The truth is we struggle. Human beings have struggled since we were in caves and evolving. What's different now is that we have a lot of diagnoses that say, oh, this is your struggle, right? And we're going to label it, and therefore, here's what we can do. And when Dave said brain function drives behavior, not brain chemistry. So how your brain is functioning is the master of chemistry. So when you're pathologizing something and you think the solution is taking a tablet, that's chemistry. And you can create a short-term temporary change. But if you really want to overcome something, then you've got to change brain function. And that's what actualized recovery is.
I love that. I remember probably 60 or 90 days sober. I went outside one day walking the dog, and I, like, within an instant, felt like my brain had changed in a way that things, like the sky looked bluer. I
Right.
smelled things differently.
Yes.
Is that a form of the
Yes.
neuroplasticity in my
Yes.
brain? Yeah, rewiring
Yeah.
itself in a way.
Yes. Exactly. Because you weren't doing the behavior that you didn't want anymore, whatever that was. And so your brain was actually rewiring to this new pattern. And that's when we say consistent action over time. So whatever you don't want, whatever behavior is causing harm, causing pain, whatever it is, what we have to do is not do that behavior, but more importantly, you've got to choose what is the behaviors that are going to fill that void. So as Dave tells a great story, if you're a smoker and a coffee drinker,
Yeah. If you want to stop smoking, and we've coached a lot of people with this, and well, when's the first time you have a cigarette? Well, I wake up in the morning, like, what's the pattern? What happens? And I wake up in the morning, I go to the kitchen, grab my cup of coffee, I go out to the deck, and I light my cigarette and have my coffee and cigarette. Okay, great. And they've already said no more cigarettes, so let's cover that. So let's disrupt the pattern, and let's go get up in the morning, go get the coffee, and go into your bathroom. Well, I'd never smoke in the house. Okay, so it's changing now. Now the first day and the second day and the third day are going to feel awkward. So people who are new in recovery, please get it's going to feel awkward, and that's okay, because by week 3, that's your new normal. By month 3, which you're talking about, Nate, is that the thought that the instant thought to go have the cigarette on the deck is pretty much gone. And the new you've established this new pattern. So for anybody who's new in recovery, week 1 is your hardest week. So we call them the cheerleaders. When the cheerleaders, the rah-rah cheerleaders, because when the cheering stops, now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just be careful of that. But certainly, and I think in your experience, I love your story. I would like to believe, or I do believe in, by studying neuroscience, a year is even better than 90 days, Nate.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody, that's my offer of hope today. This isn't you don't lack willpower.
Right.
You don't have bad character. This isn't about, you have to pray harder. If you want to pray, great, but this is about your brain and your brain power and doing new things.
So let's dive into brain health. What are some things that we can focus on, or routines to get into, if we are interested in strengthening, or I guess as a sort of accompaniment to recovery? What are some things that we can focus on for brain health?
Yeah. So I'm going to take a bigger picture. And what we discovered is, after years of running a residential program, there were certain things that everybody had in common. So although everybody had different unique backgrounds, different families, different challenges, there was a thread through all of it that helped people turn it around. So we came up with what we call the 5 principles of actualized recovery. The first is physiological. So we have to start, if anybody studied Maslow's hierarchy, and you look at the very bottom level of Maslow's hierarchy, and Maslow was a psychologist that studied the best, most successful people in the 1940s. What he noticed is that there was common traits. And the first thing was, physically, the body had to have hydration. We needed oxygen. We needed nutrients. We needed homeostasis, where the body is able to manage itself, and that's brain. So the beginning of everybody's journey, Nate, is physiological. And physiology drives psychology, and psychology is the second principle. The third is spirit. And again, that's unique for everybody. The fourth, and probably the most important for people in recovery, is connections. If you continue to hang out with the same people that are doing the same things, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to say no and to begin to rewire.
Well, Johan Hari has written a wonderful book on this.
Oh,
Saying
love
the
it.
opposite of sobriety,
Yeah, we love it too.
the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction
It's connections.
is connections,
Right.
is relationships. And
Yeah.
there's studies on Rat Park that showed this, that when rats are left alone in a cage, they will die drinking morphine water. And if
Yeah.
rats are in a public setting, meaning
Yeah.
community and play and toys, Rat Park, they leave the morphine water alone. And so what we can take away from that is, we humans, what do we do with people who have addiction issues? We isolate them. And shame them.
Yeah.
And we don't shame people with a heart issue or a
Mhm.
kidney issue. This is just a brain issue.
Mhm.
And community and connection. Now be careful with this,
Mhm.
because if you hang out on Thursday evening with the guys that you know have cocaine in their pocket, that's a bad idea.
Right.
But they're my friends.
Yeah.
So it is about fearlessly and courageously creating new connections about what you want. It's not focusing, driving the car with the rearview mirror, what you don't want. It's what you want today and moving forward, and then create connections around that.
And that's the fifth principle, is lifestyle. So bringing those four together.
That was a good lead-in.
You guys,
Really?
you've done this before.
Good lead-in.
That one actually was a first, but I think we'll do it again.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 principles. So for people that are listening, the first 3 things that I said were hydration, oxygen, and nutrients. So the brain requires hydration, and it requires glucose, and it requires oxygen. So sometimes, Nate, people take a breathing class and they think this is the solution, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to reset the nervous system and I'm going to do this breathing. But it actually can be harmful if the brain doesn't have enough hydration and if the brain doesn't have enough glucose. So we need all 3 things in balance. So that would be my first tip to listeners.
I've heard of this thing, and this is kind of off topic, but of like water intoxication. Have you heard of this? If you like drink too much water?
Hyperhidrosis, I think. It became very popular. Actually, I think there was a Spokane radio station about a decade ago, and doing these jackass things.
Right.
And they encourage people to drink copious amounts of water at one time. And you can actually, which makes sense, right? What we're saying is you need all 3 things in balance. So you drink too much water and you get too much hydration, the liver and the brain actually can't process that. And it can be morbid.
However, drink water in the morning, not Red Bull, please.
Oh gosh, the energy drinks, I can't.
Yeah. Oh, from a brain point of view, Nate, don't get me started.
No, I don't.
Because we'll just dive down this hole. Yeah. Caffeine, from a brain point of view, is not your friend. Glucose is different. People say right now, my doctor told me I shouldn't have sugar. Which is, if you think about it, nobody actually sits down and eats a bowl full of sugar.
Right.
Nobody does, right? We don't sit down and do that. It's the other stuff that is in the foods that you're saying, I don't want to eat sugar. But so sugar's been canceled, and sugar is necessary for the brain to process. So we need lots of fruits. We need starchy vegetables like potatoes and squashes and things like that. Your brain loves that stuff.
Apples. We always have apples, bananas, always around, and always noshing on them.
Yeah.
Apple a day.
If that makes sense, let's not cancel sugar anymore because your brain needs it. So if you're on a high fat diet, there's a good chance that you're going to reach for alcohol because you are looking for the quick fix in glucose, and it doesn't work, but your brain thinks it might be a good source.
All in balance, right?
And 100% is easier than 99%. So for listeners, your audience, maybe the ones that are just starting out, 100% is so much easier than 99%. if you think of it from a cigarette smoker's point of view, and you trick yourself into saying, oh, on Friday night, I'll have one cigarette, just one. I'm just going to celebrate the week. That is not how your brain works. Your brain goes right back to those neural pathways that you're trying to disconnect.
Mm. I love that. It's so true. When you boil it down, 100% is easier than 99.
If it's ice cream or you're an overeater and there's certain things that trigger it, having those in your home is hard.
Well, a lot of people go on a diet and then go, well, I've been great for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They haven't reached what their goal was, and they may have a cheat meal and they wake up tomorrow feeling guilty. It is more difficult to get back on the diet, and the brain goes, well,
the brain has a memory,
and it remembered the fix of whatever that was, and you've introduced this, so it's far easier. And there's skills and things you can do to get over those cravings and to connect why emotionally you want to eat, what's going on, and physiological. Why is the brain and the gut craving this right now? What's happening? So there's some deeper questions there. But Nate, one of the things in recovery is the thing that people are powerless. It's a myth. It's a myth. I am powerless over fill in the blank. Psychology teaches us we're never powerless. That there is a stimulus. Frankel teaches in logotherapy. There's a stimulus or stimuli, which is an act. My boss has yelled at me. There's a behavior and action, which is I drink. And in between the two, there's a gap. What happens in the gap is I have the ability to make choice. Now, if I go to the bar and have a drink, maybe I have no more choices because the horse ran out of the barn. But I had choices as to going to the bar to meet my buddies or going to play pickleball. Like I had choices earlier in the day that led up to that. So we believe and we empower for everybody out there. You have power. You are not powerless over anything in this world. And don't give your power away, because that's what a victim will do.
In fact, going back to the willpower versus brain power, Nate, people that have addiction struggles are actually some of the strongest individuals I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. And so if your listener can think about that you have power, absolutely. And the people that you know, what is wonderful is that every day they get up and they want to overcome struggles. So they're creative. We used to say to parents of young adults that were dealing drugs to be able to afford their own drugs, this is an entrepreneur. Like if you look at the steps that he had to take or she had to do, this is really remarkable if we put this in the right direction, right? That this person is highly intelligent, highly creative.
That resilient goes back to, too.
Yes, very resilient.
But that goes back to the fundamental thing is we believe in greatness in people.
I love that. Well, we both have beautiful books behind us. Let's talk about your process of compiling and writing and releasing the book.
We had a fundamental question. What would happen if we help people rewire and change their brains? Yeah. Would there be a different outcome? The answer is yes. So we ran a residential program and we worked with over 2,000 people. Now we have our online academy. And here's the neat part is it's as effective or more effective.
Being online
because people are in their natural environment.
Yes.
So their triggers,
their natural habitat, so to say.
That's right.
Yeah. So they can make changes very quickly.
We're really proud of this, Nate. Dr. Daniel Amen of the Amen Clinics has even said the first word in his endorsement of our book is the word finally, ! And that's a powerful word.
That is.
Because he's seen somebody finally.
He's saying never before has it been. Right. Yes.
Bless you. Exactly right. And he calls it a groundbreaking, game changer. He calls that, I won't read the whole quote, but to get Dr. Amen, the leading neuro brain psychiatrist in the world.
But we were stunned and he read it, first of all.
Love the book.
Love the book. When the endorsement came in, we're like, Holy smokes.
So that's just a power, but that's a powerful statement where he's going that finally somebody gets the brain. We call it the brain first approach to recovery and well-being. And that's what he's endorsing.
So you asked about the book, the process of the book. The first part of the book, Nate, is where we really talk in layman's terms about the brain and how brain functions. So we released the book last week. So this is like a brand new baby that launched.
Yes.
And we started to have messages come in right away. And one of the most moving messages was from a couple, and her husband is really at a very, very low point. And she said she started reading him the book. And by chapter 3, he said to his wife, this is a gift from God because somebody finally understands what's happening inside my head.
They're from Australia.
Yeah.
And it's just that's one of the things that gets us up in the morning is the ability to positively impact people who are struggling and believing that there is greatness in them despite their struggles. The struggles can be temporary.
So after we teach the brain in layman's terms, and that's the feedback from everybody, is somehow you've taken a very complex subject and I actually understand it. So we're gifted at that. Our background is teaching, by the way. So we come at everything from a teaching perspective. And then the latter chapters are all about pulling apart those principles that we talked about.
And what you can do.
And what you can do. So you can choose so many different avenues, whatever you want to focus on. But there's so many things in there. And that was, Nate, our hope was we ran a private program. It was private pay. Families had to cover the cost. And our biggest dream was to be able to offer our principles to everyone. So the book is the beginning of that. And as Dave said, our online communities, we have free resources. We have clubs that you can join. So we are thrilled. This is like a dream come true.
And we teach people to be recovery coaches.
Yeah.
So
the first, if you feel the calling.
Yeah, the neat part of the book, the first half is called neuroarchitecture. Like, how does it all work?
Yeah.
And then the second part is the recovery blueprint, which is if you want to follow a blueprint, we lay it out for you. And it is written in very easy to understand English. If you can follow our conversation today, you will get greatness out of this book.
That's amazing. I love that it invites others, if they feel the calling, to kind of join the community. And of course, I'll link the book and I'll link your other programs and contact in today's show notes, of course. But Dave, go ahead.
Our goal is actually to train and certify 1,000 people who are interested to become crisis and recovery coaches. It's an international certification. We've got accreditation in the U.S. and in the U.K. We're recognized and we speak about this all over the place. And we've got a class ongoing. 3 times a year we start a new class. And if anybody's interested in a career of helping others through recovery, come be a crisis and recovery coach.
And the 1,000 was important. So compounding, if we train 1,000 recovery and crisis coaches, and they each work with 1,000 people or families, we've impacted over 1 million people. Yeah.
And when you break it down like that, when you reverse engineer things, it's doable, right?
Oh,
that is
totally
completely doable. Absolutely.
Totally doable.
I want to ask you a last question about the brain's response to, other support groups or other recovery tactics. Often, we're looking back at events in our life. Some may say, rehashing negativity or dwelling on the past as a form of recovery. How does the brain process that if we're continually going back to?
I think your intuition is. I think I know where your intuition is. So here's what happens: there is something called trauma attraction.
Yeah,
where people do connect. Cutters will connect with cutters. People who have had cocaine issues will connect with people with cocaine. Those are trauma attraction. And that is talking about past events and connecting based on my trauma. And if you want to move forward in your life, that becomes a very difficult task, because you're talking about what happened in the past and sharing each other's stories. And then it becomes almost a competition. And is that, well, yeah, well, this is what happened to me, versus becoming empowered in life. And empowered in life starts with the answering this question: what do you want
today?
What do you want? Start there. Not what happened. What do you want? And moving forward. So positive psychology is a strengths-based psychology, which we embrace. What are your strengths and what do you want? And let's create a life of purpose, versus things that you can never change, and accepting them, that they've helped shape me in a positive way.
Nate, we're like the auto body shop. So we say to our coaches that we train, the police and the insurance company want to know how it happened, why it happened, and who's to blame. When you come at it from a brain first approach to recovery, we're like the auto body shop. We just look at the damage and we want to fix it. What do you want? How do you want to be able to drive this vehicle forward? That's it.
Dave and Susan Kenney, founders of Emergo Academy and authors of Actualized Recovery. It's not about 12 steps. Recovery is a brain thing. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. I loved our conversation. A different approach, a different angle to recovery. What a pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening today, friends, and downloading our episodes. Hopefully you heard something inspiring today and that resonates with you. For more information and to apply to be a guest on the show, head over to thesobrietydiaries.com or follow us on Instagram at Podcast Revolution Studios. I love chatting with you guys. Check out all of our video episodes at youtube.com/NateKelly. Make sure to subscribe to the show now so you never miss an upload. We're back with new episodes every Wednesday. Goodbye, everyone.